YouTube family, you're welcome back again to my channel. And if it is your first time in here, we got you. Do not snap out. There's something for everyone in this channel. Basically, what we'll do is to tour around New Zealand digitally with you so that you see places of interest and anticipate what you would see when you're finally here. And most importantly, we'll give first-hand information, situational reports on what living, working, and studying in New Zealand is all about. So today we would be talking about the best country to do your PhD studies in. My name is Julia Chinelo, your out and about lady here in New Zealand anytime, any day. So let's get started. And if you've not subscribed, use the subscription button, some thumbs up, and pop your comments in the comment box below. I know making the decision to do your PhD is often a hard one, and a lot of countries come to mind because it's a longer study compared to studying at other levels. So countries like United States of America, United Kingdom, Canada, Australia, Germany, New Zealand come to mind. So which of these 6 countries is the best country for PhD studies? Having carried out extensive research on this particular topic and from the opinion of people from various groups I belong in, from my friends and family scattered all over the world working and studying, most importantly, my very own personal experience, having been part of my husband's journey, who has studied in 3 out of the 6 named countries above. Just permit me to give it to New Zealand. I know you might think otherwise, but I completely respect your opinion because I probably think it would have been influenced by what you're prioritizing or your personal situation. But what I will urge you to do is to please pop that in the comment section so that people that are searching for that information will have it and make the necessary comparison and get started with your PhD. So let's get going. 8 mind-blowing facts about doing your PhD in New Zealand. School fees is the number 1. New Zealand is the only country among the 6 named countries above that the international, overseas, or abroad PhD students pay the same school fees as the locals or the residents, and that is currently about 8,000 New Zealand dollars. I know some of you in Germany will be like, what is she saying? Please just take a chill pill. I know in Germany, the most university there, all they require from you is semester contribution, which is about 180 euros. But wait till I roll out the other points where I still think it is New Zealand if you've got no scholarship and you're financially constrained. So the second point we would be talking about today is acceptance. If you pick New Zealand as your PhD choice, the chances of you getting accepted easily, that is getting admission easily, is a little bit more settled, because apart from the general requirement of you coming up with a proposal, what you would like to study, and probably approaching your prospective supervisor, the chances of you being accepted in other countries is lower, because for example, in countries like Germany, it is almost impossible for you to get started with your PhD if you have no scholarship or funding, because most of the professors there would be reluctant to take you because they feel you should be funded to do PhD studies. And in most countries like US, Canada is usually pay as you go if you do not have funding. But in New Zealand, if you do not have funding because of the lower school fees, the professors are more likely to accept you without scholarship, because from their experience they know you could pull through, if you get what I mean, that you might not really struggle. So acceptance is relatively higher in New Zealand than these other countries. And the third point we'll be talking about today is flexibility of research topic. There is no other way to explain this point other than to say that when people give you money, they call the shot. So because of the school fees again in New Zealand, if you do not have scholarship, you are allowed that flexibility to fine-tune what your research topic would be like and work it out with your supervisor, because no one is funding you. But in most other countries where PhD is often funded and programmed, that flexibility of you distorting your topic and tailoring it down to something that you're passionate about is slim. I would explain further. I have this close friend in Germany who finished his master's and was offered a funded PhD, but the topic put him off. And guess what the topic is? Detoxification of cassava leaves so that it can be used as vegetables in Africa. So this friend of mine actually had no interest in going back to Africa after his studies, so that topic did not interest him because he's not planning to go back to Africa and won't be detoxifying cassava leaves for vegetables. So if you have got a plan, a research, something you are keen that you want to work on, your own original research, the best country is New Zealand. You will be supported once you get a supervisor that is an expert in that area to see you through your study. So if you want that flexibility option, think New Zealand. The fourth point that I will be talking about today is funding or living expenses. We all know that for you to move to any of the system countries to do your studies, be it PhD or other level, there has to be some fund, the money that you will show, which in, as it may be called in some places, living expenses. In New Zealand is a little bit lower. I think about 15,000 New Zealand for a single person and a couple of more dollars if you're coming with your family. But if you compare it with other countries, is lower in New Zealand than Canada, US, and other places. But in the case of Germany, my problem is that this money stay in a block account. You don't have access to it. It will be in that block account till you are done studying. But New Zealand, in as much as you would prove to them beyond all reasonable doubt that the money is yours before the immigration will give you your student work visa, but that money is still yours. That means you could do business or use it to solve one or two problems back home, but you have to make it available whenever you are going for your next visa application. So we are getting there. The fifth point I'll be talking about today is PhD student work visa. In New Zealand again, PhD students have that leverage of being able to work full-time hours. That is 40 hours plus weekly. But in most countries, there is no that leverage. You do student hours, which is about 20 hours, unless school is not on session. All you need to do in New Zealand is to find an employer and work out the flexibility of the hours between your studies and your work. And once you could cope with the stress in between the two, you are good to go. Boom. Financially, you won't be that, you won't really be struggling, unlike other countries where the struggle is a little bit more. Okay, the sixth point we'll be talking about today is student job. Of course, again, New Zealand being an English-speaking country, which is an advantage. Also, the awesome weather condition here, because the weather is not to the extreme, creates a wider job opportunity. Like, there are options of outdoor jobs, unlike other countries with extreme weather conditions. The student jobs would be smaller. I think I would be making another video to talk about student job options in New Zealand. We'll get there. So the next point I'll be talking about today is work permits for the PhD spouse or partner. In New Zealand, all you need to do is prove that you are in a stable relationship or into your spouse for about a year. Once you prove that to immigration will grant your spouse a work visa till when you paid your school fees up to what I'm trying to say. If you're studying for 3 years and you just paid a year's school fees, immigration will just grant your spouse a year open work visa. And if it is 3 years, the same goes. So it is often easier for your spouse to get visa once you prove this, and your spouse can work for any New Zealand employer that engages him or her and support you in the journey of your PhD. And the next point I'll be talking about is children school support or subsidy. Again, if you're moving to New Zealand with your family, there is this option as a PhD student. There's this option of your children being supported or have access to subsidy at the same rate as New Zealand citizens. For example, in the kindergarten, your child can get up to 20 hours free. Yep, 20 hours free if you're a PhD student. And you can get 10 hours free depending on the kindy, that making it a whopping 30 hours free. 10 more hours free in kindies that are further subsidized by NGOs or religious group. So I don't know if this is obtainable where you are. Let us know. So another point that I'll be talking about is also for someone coming over with a family. Your family would be able to enroll into New Zealand healthcare system. Watch this clause. If your spouse have got up to 2 years work visa, that's when this will be applicable. Enrollment into New Zealand healthcare system for your family members that are not up to the age of 18, and also the previous points I discussed also is tied to this clause, 2 years work visa for your spouse. Your spouse have to have that 2 years work visa for you to have these last two benefits. So enrolling into New Zealand healthcare system is a big deal, because if childbirth will be at the same rate as the locals, and your kids' medication and hospital bills would be free. And if you compare this to other places in the world, trust me, if you are an overseas student studying in US, it's pay as you go when it comes to medicals. And also in Germany, in fact, it is illegal for you to be in Germany without health insurance. So these are the 8 mind-blowing benefits you will have access to if you choose to do your studies in New Zealand. So make that decision and get started. You could be among the people that will be wearing convocation regalia marching down to take your certificate in a couple of years time. If you make that decision and get started, it's still your out and about lady anytime, any day here in New Zealand. See you next week Wednesday. Bye bye.